Okay, and Don just said that he seems to be having trouble being heard, but he's just going to send text messages if he has questions. And I'm not sure, I'm not showing you muted, and I'm not showing that there's any problem. So we'll just start. I'm Jerry Ledbetter. Sorry about that. I'm with the Spring Stewardship Institute. And can you see my screen okay? Okay.
Yeah.
This is a webinar presented by the SkyIsland Alliance and the Spring Stewardship Institute. We've been working together for a couple of years to develop an online database in order to allow for collaboration. And Spring Stewardship Institute initially designed an access database, and it worked really well across our network, but it didn't lend itself to collaboration. And when SkyIsland Alliance wanted to enter data into this system, they had to actually drive up to Flagstaff, which it was a nice time of year to do that. It was really hot in Tucson. But the goal has been to develop an online database and geo-collaborative tools so that we could work together more efficiently. And so basically, that I already did the introduction of what we're trying to do. I'll go over the geo-collaborative geospatial tools and the online database, and we'll talk about data security and the benefits and trade-offs of collaboration and the next steps. You're all fairly familiar already with the database and with the Spring Stewardship Institute, and so I'll just move along. As I understand it, so Dana and Dawn, you are both fairly familiar with the online database. And so I don't want to start completely from the beginning. And so if it's too remedial, I hope you'll let me know. So we've developed two kinds of geo-collaborative tools. One is, okay, Don said that he knows what it is, but he's never used it. So we have two different kinds of tools. We have mapping applications, and those are published from our Geo database. And the Geo database is fairly simple. It doesn't have, it just has the spatial information, where the springs are located. And all of the non-spatial data are stored in this online database, but you can join the two using a common site ID if you want to do geospatial analysis. And the main reason for that is that you don't want to have a master's degree in GIS in order to enter data into the system. And so GIS is great. I'm a big fan, but keeping the non-spatial data in a separate database is the way we've taken it, and it will allow people to, from within an hour or two, I can train somebody in how to enter data into the online database, where it would take a lot longer if we put it all into a GIS. This is just our online web mapping application for the Desert LCC Springs distribution, and the great thing about having these applications online, and rather than everybody having their own individual databases and geodatabases, is when we add a spring, it shows up right away on this map. So it's real-time information as people are adding springs. We have developed a mapping application for SkyIsland Alliance, and this is available online. And this is all the springs within their study area. And you can get to this from the Spring Stewardship Institute, the research areas section of our website. But this is interactive. You can zoom in, you can see where the springs are. The springs in green with green dots are surveyed. So you can click on one of those and get the information about the spring, just basic information. You can also apply different base maps. And so these mapping applications are really pretty simple, and it allows people who don't have GIS skills to still interact with the springs in a map. But again, this is just basic information, locational information about the spring that's stored here. The bulk of the survey data are stored in our online database, and this is the interface for it. It's we've tried to design it to be as user-friendly as possible. I'm going to start by just looking for springs, and that's kind of the first place a lot of people start. One of the really important things about to remember with this system is that we have 80,000 springs in here now, and more are being added every day. And so if you're looking for a spring with a really unusual name like Montezuma Well, you can just put in the spring name and open it up with this pencil tool, edit record, and you found the spring that you're looking for. This is, we're on the site form right now. This has all the information about the location of the spring that basically doesn't change. So who owns it, what land unit it's on, which HUC it's in, which quad, whether or not the data are sensitive, the information source for the location, that sort of thing. The description should have a this is kind of cryptic, but an overall description of the site that doesn't change over time. The most recent image and the most recent sketch map will appear on this tab. The georeferencing information is on this tab, so it's how we identified the location, and this was from a map. If we used a GPS unit, the datum we used, and the UTMs in latitude, longitude, and the elevation. If you click on this little globe symbol, it will open up a map and show you the location of the spring. And you can zoom in pretty far to see the topographic map. You can also look at the satellite imagery, and you can zoom in a lot farther. And from here, you can actually move the location of the spring. I could say, well, I want it right in the center of this point. And if I hit Submit Coordinates, it will automatically paste those coordinates into this form. I'm being a little bit careful now because this is the live site. Just as a reminder, we have a training site here, and it's at springsdata.org/test. And so if you want to mess around with it, you can go into that one and not worry about changing any data. The geomorphology, again, this is all information that tends not to change. The spring type, the emergence environment, the flow force mechanism, the lithology, that sort of thing, doesn't really change over time. And then the Surveys tab lists all the surveys associated with that site. And you can open up the survey and look at more information, and I'll get to that in a little bit. I just wanted to show you that and reiterate that I can search by a spring name, but that's unless it's a really unique name like a Montezuma Well. That's not the best way to do it, because if I put in Willow Spring, if you have the occasion to name a spring, don't call it Willow. We have 425 springs with the name Willow in it. So that's a problem to get to the actual spring that you're looking for. There have been people that thought that we didn't have a spring in the system already, and so they added it, and that makes things really complicated for us to resolve those duplicates. So it's really important that you do a thorough search to see if that spring that you're looking for is in here already before you just add it. So if I'm looking for a willow spring, and I can set criteria to narrow down to the area that I'm looking for. So I can say it's in the United States, it's in Arizona, it's in Coconino County, it's on forest land, and then search. Now I get only 6 records. So I can limit my search range by quite a bit and be more likely that I'm actually finding the spring that I'm looking for. But still, a lot of spring names aren't accurate. A lot of the data that we have came from the NHD database, and a bunch of those are even though there is a name on a topo map, maybe Willow Spring on a topo map, but it's not in the NHD database as Willow Spring. It's called unnamed spring, or it's, whatever. And so if you know where a spring is located, you can just enter the latitude and longitude, and you can set a radius of maybe 2 miles or 5 miles or something, and then hit search, and it will find all the springs within that radius of that we have in our database. So now, if I'm looking for a spring, in this case in the Flagstaff area, and I want to see if it's in here, and the names are not accurate as one would hope, I can click on this Maps tab, and I can look at the coordinates in Google Map, and then I can see if the spring is in here or not. And if I'm looking for a spring right in here, it's obviously not there, so I can add it to the system. I can also look at it in Google Earth, and let's see if this works quickly. So you can look at it in Google Maps or Google Earth. Oh, there we go. Whoa. So it's the same image, but Google Earth allows a little bit more capacity than Google Maps does. Okay, so if I'm sure that the spring isn't in here, then I can go back into the system and add the spring. Let's look at, actually, let's go ahead and look back at Montezuma Well. So I'll click on this Edit Record, and here we are again back at the site information. This is the information that doesn't change. There is a one-to-many relationship between sites and surveys, so you can have many surveys for each site. And so I'm going to look at my survey list, and there are 2 surveys associated with this site, and this is how you can monitor change over time and condition over time. So I'm going to click on the date to open the survey, and here's should all be information about what you saw that day. And a survey doesn't necessarily mean you have information about all the categories of information, all the categories that we have. It could just be water chemistry data, or it could just be flow. So I'll look at the flow data, and they measured flow at 65 liters per second. Water chemistry, all the measurements that they took are here, and they sent some information out to the lab, and so under comments that these tests in the lab were completed by the U of A. This is a list of invertebrates that were noted on that day at the site, and this is where the beauty and the value of a relational database really shows. I can click on this invertebrate taxon, the species name, and open up all the taxonomic information about that species, and then it lists every place that species has been reported or observed. Maximum and minimum elevation, it's been reported at 13 sites. I can also map this. I can show all those occurrences in Google Maps. We have information about the conservation status, and these are all questions that we're addressing in our Springs Dependent Species project. But there's a ton of information about each of these species. So I'll go back into my survey information, and the vertebrates are set up in a similar way. I can click on yellow-rumped warbler, and I can see all of the locations where the yellow-rumped warbler has been reported. I can sort by land unit. I can sort by elevation, by country. In any of these drop-downs, I can sort alphabetically up or down. And again, I can look at it in Google Maps. So as this database becomes populated, you can see how we're compiling more and more information about distribution of these species. Images, you can upload images in here, one or several. We ask that people not upload too many and that they're not very big. If somebody tries to upload an image that's 50 megabytes, it actually won't allow it. They'll get an error message saying, no, you have to make it smaller. You can also, so we try to put in one representative image of the site, and then we can also upload additional images if it seems appropriate. Maybe there's somebody got a picture of a black bear running away, or a particular species of frog, a leopard frog, and they wanted to upload that, that's fine. Over here, if there is a sketch map for the site, that would appear. The SEEP is our our way of measuring the condition of the site and the risk of the site. And again, this is if we have multiple surveys, and we can look at trends, positive or negative. This tab just shows who changed the information and when. And the admin, only an administrator of a site is able to access this information, so I could go in and delete a survey, but not everybody has that ability. So we have a lot of restrictions in what you can do. Somebody wouldn't be able to come in here and delete a bunch of stuff without permission to do so. As far as the vegetation, our protocols call for putting vegetation in. We identify microhabitats associated with the site. In this case, A is the pool in the center, B is the wetland around the pool, C is the slope around it, and D is a tunnel where the water flows out from this spring. We describe then each of these microhabitats. We describe the soils, how much litter, how much precipitate is there. And then this is where the vegetation goes. So we said that in polygon B, there's acacia in shrub cover and the percent cover, and it also has the native status and the wetland status of most of the species in here. Similarly, if I click on the species, it opens up the taxonomic editor, and I can see all the information about that, the common name, the growth habit, all this information on the right side and over here was downloaded from the USDA plants database. Maximum and minimum elevations and the number of sites where that species has been found. I can also just download this information. So if I wanted to look at a particular species, I could, if I wanted to see all the sites where cheatgrass has been reported, I could download this and I could put it into a GIS and do an analysis of it. Is this making sense? Sorry. Is this link within, Dana asks, is this link within Springs? Or is it going outside another database? Yes, it's within, this is all within the database. I'm trying, can you explain, you're trying to follow along in the database and you're not getting the same, you're not seeing the same thing? Is that what you're saying, Dana? Okay. So part of it may be that in order to access survey information, you need to have permissions to access it. In this case, I'm just showing you what the potential is of the database, but you may not have, you probably don't have permissions to access this information. What we could do is we could look at a site in the Sky Island Alliance that everybody has access to if you want to go that route. And we could do that next. Maybe Louise or Carrie Ann could suggest a site that you guys have surveyed that we could take a look at that might be more conducive to following along. And I'm almost done with this part of it. So one of the great things, so we enter all the plants that are associated with the site, which polygon they're in. Some people don't record the percent cover, but that's okay. You can, this has a lot of flexibility so that you can enter, like I said, you could just enter water chemistry data or you could just enter a plant list, and that's fine. If I click View Crosstab, this will look a lot like the data that were entered in the field. So we found Acacia gragii, shrub cover, 1% cover in B, and 3% cover in C, the native status and the wetland status. So that's a really quick way of making sure that you've entered the data correctly. And then Calculate Cover Totals does a really fast analysis that used to take a very long time to do, but it's a lot of information here, but it counts the number of native versus non-native plants. Unknown is typically if they weren't able to identify it. Total number of species, the species density, wetland species count, and the percent cover of those wetland species. So this is all really great information that is available very quickly. So I'm going to go back to the survey information and maybe, so this particular survey, every survey has to be associated with a project, and this survey is associated with the Mogollon Rim project. So in order to see all of this information that I've been showing you, you have to have permissions to access the land unit that this is on, and also the project that this survey is associated with. So maybe Louise suggested West Hospital Flat. So we can go to that and view the survey data that they compiled for West Hospital Flat. So remember this, each survey is associated with a project. So when Sky Island Alliance was working on this project, they can go into project management. You don't have to go to each individual spring. They can go to project management and enter the project that they're working on. And this shows a list of all of the sites, all of the surveys that they completed. So they did a lot of work here, right? You can sort by the site name. You can sort by state or county. So if you're just looking for particular springs, if let's say I'm just looking for land unit springs on BLM land, or you just want to sort by date. The EOD is extent of data, and that is how robust, how many categories of information were collected during that survey. So if I click this again, it'll sort then by the highest extent of data, EOD, and Aston Spring, Bear Spring, these all have really complete data. The highest you can have is 11 categories of information. So if I look down this list and I look for, I'm not seeing West Hospital Flat. Is there, maybe we'll just pick one of these that has a fairly high extent of data. Is it okay to look at Bear Spring here? Okay.
Yeah, that would be fine.
Okay. So we'll open up that. So I just click on the spring name, and it opens up the survey data that were collected at the time. If I click on this back to site information, I'll be looking at the information associated with the site that doesn't change over time. Here's a list of surveys, and I can go back into the survey from here. So this is general information about the survey, the site condition on that day, who the surveyors were, and which project it was in. It's important to put the project information in because if you don't assign a project, then it will immediately become invisible to you. So it's really important to make sure that you put the project in, and if you're adding a site, put in the land unit that you have permissions to access. So here's their flow information. They measured flow at 0.14 liters per second. They measured some water quality characteristics. This is their list of invertebrates. This is the image of the site. This is a really great sketch map. They had some excellent volunteers that did really nice sketch maps. I'd love to hire them. And then this is their assessment of the condition and the risk. In this case, they, rather than identifying the microhabitats associated with the site, they just essentially created a plant list, and whenever we do that, we show that if you're just looking at the entire site rather than individual microhabitats, we enter that site as a code of X, and X always means the entire site. So they estimated the area in square meters, and here's their plant list. You can't put in a plant unless you have a polygon to associate it with. So if I go back into the management menu, and this is actually a new thing. We have the ability to manage land units. Maybe I'll go into permissions first. And So the permissions are something that I have access to everybody's permissions, and so you need to be nice to me. Dana Backer, then, this is your information when you created a username. What I'm going to do is make sure that you have access to SkyIsland data. So I'll give you editor access to the SkyIsland project. And you need access to the project, but you also need access to the land unit. And I'm just going to look back to see where Bear Spring is. It's Sierra Vista Ranger District, Coronado National Forest. So I'm going to go into United States, Arizona, and this is how I set permissions for everyone. I'll expand this. I could make Dana an administrator for this land unit. Don asked, please do the same for me. I will. So here's Coronado National Forest, so I'm going to give you editor access to that and hit add permissions. And there may be some other permissions that we need to do, but for right now we'll just set it to those so that you can have access to the information we're looking at right now. And you need to log out and log back in before these will be fixed associated with your login. I can also set the sensitivity level. I can say that you can access locationally sensitive information, survey sensitive information, or both. So I'm going to give you access to all. This would mean that you should be able to see sensitive data, both locationally and survey sensitive. So I'll add that permission as well. So it's just that simple. Now, the way it's set up, a land manager can be an administrator. So if you have somebody from Coronado National Forest, we can designate them as an administrator, and then they can apply these permissions too. So somebody at Spring Stewardship Institute doesn't have to always do this. It'll kind of take on a life of its own. Is that making sense? And please just jump in with any questions that you have, and I'm happy to respond as they come in. So we'll go in and we'll do the same thing for Dawn. So I'll set the sensitivity level to both. I can actually set up an expiration date for the permissions. So if you have a student, an intern, or somebody that you want them to have the ability to enter data for 3 months or something, you can set an expiration date. But I'm not going to give Dawn an expiration date. So I'm looking up Arizona. I'm going to U.S. Forest Service, Coronado, editor permissions, and also SkyIsland Alliance permissions. And I'll add those. So once he logs out and logs back in, once you log out and log back in, those permissions should work for you. And Dana said you're not getting anything under site and survey management or project management, and that is a permissions issue. You essentially didn't have any permissions assigned when I opened this up, and so that's why you can't get into any of that. So I'm hoping that makes sense. The permission structure is fairly complicated, but it's set up that way in order to protect sensitive data and protect land managers that don't want to share their data with other land managers. And this is particularly, or they don't want to share their information with just anyone who signs up for an account. Tribes are particularly sensitive to this, and we are working with a lot of tribes, and we have these permissions in place mostly to make sure that that their data are protected. Okay, so if we go back to Bear Spring. One thing you'll notice, if you see all these tabs at the top of my screen, those tabs, anytime you open, say, the taxonomic editor, it creates a new tab. And so you end up with a ton of these up here. So if I go through, I can see all the places that I've been. And every now and then, it's a good thing to just go up and close some of these tabs so that you don't get really confused and have, it doesn't do any harm as far as I can tell, to have, I've ended up with 50 of these open, but just to keep yourself from getting too confused, it's probably best to go ahead and close those up. Actually, I'll show you the report, the back in project management. I'm going to go back to SkyIsland. And so here's our list of all the surveys that they've completed. I can create reports. So I can go to, I can just export all survey data by clicking this, and it exports it. I can save the file, or I can open it with Excel. So you can see that you have really great access to the information once you enter it. I design a lot of databases, and I've been doing this a long time, and I have 3 primary rules. One is that you a database has to be designed so that it's easy to enter data. It shouldn't take longer to enter the data than it did to collect it. And that seems like a no-brainer, but it's amazing how often databases are designed so it takes twice as long to enter the data. The second rule is you have to have sideboards on the information so that data are always entered consistently. Like the land unit is always, Sierra Vista Ranger District is always entered this way. I understand now why you can't get in, Dana, and it's because I was kind of in a rush and I didn't set the permissions right, but I will fix that. So Sierra Vista Ranger District is always entered this way. Somebody can't write Sierra Vista and write out Ranger District instead of RD. And that way you can look to, if data are entered consistently, then it leaves it available for analysis. When I enter a plant, the plant is always entered the same way. And that way you can see all the places where the plants are entered. So those sideboards are really important, but they need to be balanced so that you're not restricting what data you can enter too much. There are anomalous situations that you have to deal with. For example, if you don't know what the species of plant is, you need to be able to enter just the genus or just the family or just unknown shrub. So it has to have the flexibility to enter anomalous information while also having those restrictions in place. And it's always a balance. It's always a trade-off. So this is a list of lots of reports that you can export. So invertebrate specimen list, invertebrate species by site, and some of these are pretty complex. So here's a vegetation species crosstab, and that's a huge amount of information actually. This is see how fast that opened up. So this is the site name, the USDA symbol, the species, the cover, you know, so, and the survey date, and so you would be able to do a lot of analysis with this information. We are always expanding the kinds of reports that we have available, and so if there are reports that aren't available, you can suggest things and we can add those. But these are kind of the basic ones that we've used over the years that we find really helpful. The very cool thing, you can also create a summary report, and I can filter this. I I actually need to filter this, because if for a project this big, if you created a summary report for all of these sites, you could end up crashing the system. So I'm just going to filter by United States, Arizona, Forest Service, Sierra Vista. This is where the problem was. I didn't give you the permissions correct. And then I can set a date range for the surveys that I want to create a summary report for. But this is just, I'll just show an example. And this may take a little bit of time, because what it's doing is it's taking all of that information and it's putting it into a Word document that can then be edited. And there's huge value in that. Rather than a PDF or just a printed report, it creates a Word document that then you can go in and edit as you need. And this, for a lot of land managers, this is huge. The capacity to produce a report very, very quickly with all this information. So this is a report. It's over 100 pages already. And so here, this picture is too big. It didn't fit on the front page, but because it's a Word document, I can edit it so that it will fit properly. So this is pretty huge, and it does take a little bit of editing. Some of their pictures they're just beautiful images, and they're a little bit bigger than will fit on one page. Anyway, that's really cool. That's a huge time saver to put all this information in. Is there, let's see, the management menu. From here, this is kind of where I've started with a lot of the things I've been showing you, and actually we are recording this. So Dana, if you want to, I'll set the permissions properly, and if you wanted to go through this, you could follow along once the permissions are set correctly. We've been through project management. We also have a list of references. Oops, sorry. So we have a bunch of references already in here, a couple hundred, 250. And so this is a reference. This is a publication by Stevens and Bailowitz. And these are all the taxon names associated with that reference. This isn't thoroughly built yet. I mean, it's functional, but it's not thoroughly populated yet. But there's a tremendous amount of information in here, and you can add new references to this if you're interested. Lookup table management, that's basically to add new GPS units or water chemistry units, anything like that. We can add new countries. We could put Chile in here. You can add new geologic layers or new GPS units. That's the most common thing. So I could add, if my GPS unit isn't showing up on this list, I can add it. All the states and most of the counties, if not all of the counties in the U.S. are already in here. And so there's not a whole lot that you would need to add, most of the land units as well. So the Flora Taxa editor, I'll just, all these taxonomic editors are set up pretty much the same way. But if I just type in, I can type in scientific name or common name. If I just want to look at Bromus rubens, so I select that. You could see that I started typing Bromus, and it's giving me all these possibilities. I can look down the list, or I can just keep typing. So this is all of the sites, 105 springs where Bromus rubens has been reported. That's kind of unsettling. The maximum and minimum elevation, these are defaults, so that when you add a new plant, if I add Bromus rubens to a site, the system already knows that it's an introduced plant, and it will put that value in so that you don't have to look it up each time, or you can have an intern enter the data and they don't have to look up to see if Bromus rubens is invasive or not. And the default wetland status also. And then again, the USDA information is in here. So for very rare plants, if let's see if this works. Mcdougal's, I thought Flaviaria would come up. There it is. So here's Mcdougal Flaviaria. It's a springs-dependent species, and it's only found at a few sites. So we have it reported at 9 sites, and it's mostly in Grand Canyon, some on Havasu land, so I'm going to back out of that. Is there anything in particular that I haven't covered that you're interested in?
I have something, Jerry. This is
Sure.
Carrie-Ann. So when you were talking about the photos and entering them, I didn't see that there would necessarily be a good way to enter repeat photographs from different surveys, which is something we're doing for the Adopt a Spring program. Can you address that?
Well, let's so people are just going out and taking photographs from the same location, and you want to enter those?
Yeah, and we try to limit it at Spring to, a maximum of three photos that are taken during each survey.
Yeah. Okay, so like I said, there is a survey can just be one category of information. So if it's just an image, we have some of those. Actually, I'll go to, there's a guy that he's a canyoneer. He's gone into Grand Canyon, and he has just amazing images, and he has GPS locations, but he doesn't have any other information. And so he sent us these images of a place in Grand Canyon that I'll never get to. It takes a lot of climbing skill to get to these sites. And so we put in one representative image and then additional images, and you could just add a survey for that date that they took the photograph, and you can upload these images. Right now, we don't have a report that would allow you to show all of the images over time, but I'm sure that would be pretty easy to do.
Okay, that would be something we'd be interested in, I think.
Okay. So if I'm at this Columbine Springs, and I'm in the survey information, not the site information, if I go to reports, I can create a summary report for that site. And of course, it doesn't have, excuse me just a second. Sorry. Of course, it does not have anything else. It says he surveyed the site on this date. It doesn't have the number of hours, and he collected data in one of 12 categories, meaning it was just a photograph. And so there's everything else is blank. But if there were repeat photographs, we could create a summary report that would just import all of those, and that's absolutely doable.
Awesome.
Okay. Okay. That was easy.
Yeah. That was easy. Thank you.
Okay, Dana asks if spring data has been entered for the national park within the Sonoran Desert Inventory and Monitoring Network. No, we have not received any. And actually, that's something else I was going to mention. We have a report from it's the USGS Springs of Texas, and I was able to just import those data into our system pretty easily. It doesn't all have to be manually entered. You can, okay, here it is. So I just imported all these surveys. It was 7,350 surveys that I imported last night, and all it has is flow data. But it has flow data for it's about 350 sites, but it dates back to, I think, as early as the late 1800s. Yeah, 1894. And so the message here is it's very easy to just import large amounts of data rather than manually enter it. If you have, I never just manually enter water chemistry data that we get back from a lab. They send us a spreadsheet, and I import it from the spreadsheet. But no, we have not received any of that, any of those data, and we'd be happy to talk to them about entering it. Right now, probably all we have is the location information. What is one of the parks in that? I'm drawing a blank. I was trying to think of one of the parks in that network, so we could just see what's in there.
Look at our national park.
Okay. So I'll go to U.S. I could have actually gotten there. Arizona. I'm going to leave the county blank. National Park Service. So it'll be really easy for you to see what's in here. Okay, I see a lot of suggestions here. Thanks. So we'll say Saguaro first because more people suggested that. And we'll just see what we have. So we have 19 springs as well, and those are probably imported from the NHD database. The other thing that I can do is I can enter all that same information, and I can say include only springs with survey data, and we'll see what we get there. We just heard yesterday from, yes, I will do that, Dawn. We just heard yesterday from a group that we've worked with in the past, and so there are no survey data for any of those sites. That was the question, but we do have locational data, and I'll pull that up again. There's a nonprofit that we've worked with in the past, and they've had a lot of turnover, and they did a bunch of surveys. We entered the data for them into the system, and they don't have those surveys anymore. They don't have the original field sheets, and they don't have the information, but we have it archived here, and so they still have access to it. So there's a lot of value with having it archived in a place that's secure and available to land managers when there's turnover. So I'm going to go back to National Park Service. We'll look at what was some organ pipe. Okay, so here there are 10 records here, and I'll just look at this particular one. It came from the U.S. GeoNames or the NGIS, so it wasn't the NHD database. Sometimes there are multiple. We'll import data from all these different sources: the Arizona State Land Office, the NHD database, the GeoNames, the NGIS, the Arizona State Water there's a data set there too. And we'll get the same spring imported 5 different times, and then we've gone through and resolved those duplicates. A lot of times they've got different names and they're mapped in different places, but it's clear that it's all the same spring. So resolving those duplicates is a little bit more difficult. So that's where that one came from. This one, this is from the state data. I'm not sure which data set. So it was imported in 2009 from Arizona State Land Office. So that didn't come from the NHD database. It came from one of these other sources. So we've worked really hard to get, we've devoted a lot more time to Arizona than any other state. And certainly northern Arizona we've spent more time on, but we worked pretty hard on the Sky Island area, and so we have pretty good coverage there. But I know there are a lot of sites that aren't in this database because they're not necessarily on any of those maps. But if I look at the maps, so there are all the springs that we have, and again, you know, I'm sure there are a lot that are missing, and some of these may not be in the correct location. They haven't been ground truth. They haven't been verified. But this one, you know, there is a spring marked on the topo map on the aerial imagery, and that looks like it could be there. So that would be great. You know, I'd love to talk to you guys about importing data. Again, it doesn't have to be manually entered. And if you need any help looking at Saguaro, let us know, because we always like to get out in the field. I spend way too much time in the office working on this, and so we'd love to get out in the field. Are there any other areas that I didn't cover, or any other particular questions? One thing that would help, and maybe Carrie Ann or Louise, you could help with letting me know what land units Dana and Don or anyone else should have access to, because I don't necessarily know that part of the state that well. Or you could contact me directly. Let me get back to my, so I did go through the data security. There are benefits and risks to, you know, or perceived risks to sharing this information, but I really think that most land managers, once they see what we have here, they can see the value of having all the data in one place so that it's accessible across administrative boundaries, rather than every administrator, every land unit having their own data set. So this is the next thing I wanted to mention. We have a tutorial that's downloadable now. We have an online version on our website at SpringsStewardship.org, but we are updating it. We've spent a lot of time on it over the past few weeks, and we'll have a new version out here pretty soon that may be a little more clear, a little easier to follow. We also have a training site at springsdata.org/test, and you can go onto that site and mess around a little bit more and add plants to weird places and things, and get the feel for how the data are entered. You can contact us with any questions that you have. If it has to do with permissions or complicated questions, like Carrie Ann was asking about an additional report with photos, then you contact me. As far as using the database and providing specific feedback, you can contact me or Jeff. And then Springs-dependent species questions, you can contact Larry at SpringsStewardship.org. Anything else? I've talked a lot, but I hope that I've given you a pretty good idea of what the capacity is and what the potential is. You know, we're still developing, we're still expanding, and we'd like to have your feedback. And love to talk to you more if you have specific questions or requests. Dana, are you asking for our phone number? Sorry. Here it is. Extension 270 is mine. Extension 231 is pretty much everybody else. And also, if you don't reach me there, 6994501 is my mobile number, and all this contact information is on our website too. So I would encourage you to go to. Did that go? I thought I just sent. Okay, great. And then also springstewardship.org. I would encourage you to go to that website, and there's a lot of information there. And then the database is, you already found your way there. It's springsdata.org. Okay. Well, I hope it's been helpful to you, and if questions come up, Dana, I'll look at, contact me directly, both Dana and Dawn, about what land units that you want to make sure that you have permission to. I can guess, but I'll do my best, but contact me directly about that, and I'll make sure that you have access to the information that you need. And if you have any other trouble with that, please just contact me right away. Don't struggle and get frustrated. Carrie Ann or Louise, was there anything else you guys wanted to add?
I don't have anything.
Okay. Well, thanks for setting this up, and thanks for your participation, and I hope you'll be in touch with us.
Thanks, Jerry.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Okay, thanks so much. Have a good day.
Bye-bye. Bye.